大家好，这里是文明客厅读书会，斯伯丁的隐形战第5期。Robert Spalding was retired from the U.S. Air Force as a brigadier general after more than 26 years of service. 23 years ago, Robert Spalding as a B-2 pilot in U.S. Air Force, and he completed his career as the Senior Director for Strategic Planning to the President at the National Security Council, and was the Chief Architect for the National Security Strategy. He is a former China strategist to the Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, and the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, as well as a senior defense official and defense attaché to China. He earned his doctorate in economics and mathematics from the University of Missouri and is fluent in Mandarin. Now we'll continue to read Robert Spalding's Stealth War, Chapter 2, and The Battle Begins. After Mao Zedong rose to power in 1949, ending a gloomy civil war and launching the People's Republic of China and the CCP, a plan began to take root for the nation to embark on a 100-year marathon. As amorphous as it was ambitious, the undetailed plan was to return China to its proper place in the world as a great empire. Providing added motivation to Mao and his impoverished nation was a desire for vengeance against the current world order. Mao viewed the lowlights inflicted upon China over the previous 100 years. The British Navy destroying its ports to win the Opium Wars, the collapse of the Qing dynasty in 1912, and Japan's seizures of Korea and Manchuria as a century of humiliation. The CCP continues to foster resentment over these national humiliations by treating them as unhealed wounds and indoctrinating students about them in all grade levels, from kindergarten to university. The start of the marathon was not easy. There was painfully slow growth. China aligned itself with its totalitarian cousin, the Soviet Union, which itself had limited resources and productivity. In 1958, Mao initiated a Great Leap Forward, a plan to industrialize China and reshape agrarian practice. The program backfired when drought, lack of productivity, and faulty planning led to the 4-year-long Great Famine, which left tens of millions dead. In 1966, Mao used the CCP to launch the so-called Cultural Revolution, a brutal purge designed to rid the population of traditional Chinese and capitalist ways. Teachers, businessmen, intelligentsia, religious leaders, and civil servants were jailed and sent to re-education camps. Citizens were denounced and publicly humiliated. Property was seized. Populations were forcibly relocated. Torture, executions, and even mass murder were common. Millions perished. The terror of the Cultural Revolution, communist totalitarian government ran amok. It's hard for Americans to fathom. The upheaval touched virtually everyone. Chinese dissident and journalist Sasha Gong has a haunting memory of the time. She was a little girl living with her family in a 40-unit Guangzhou apartment building when her parents and their neighbors were taken away. At one point, she recalled, there was only one adult in the entire building, living among the abandoned children and teens. During the 1950s and 1960s, China was, to an extent, a silent partner in the Cold War, presenting itself as harmless and backward compared with a superpower like the Soviet Union. While it backed communist forces in the Korean and Vietnam wars, China limited avowed expansionist and imperialist dreams to its immediate neighbors. In comparison, the Soviet Union was far more expansionist, deploying troops and military support to various African nations, including Angola, Ethiopia, and Somalia, bolstering Castro's Cuba, and, in fact, providing aid and education to China. Mao and the CCP's relationship with the USSR was what boxing champion Muhammad Ali might have called an international rope-a-jope. By playing Moscow's poor, distant communist cousin, China exploited the Soviet Union's unsuspecting support, gleaning Russian manufacturing and military secrets, while simultaneously weakening its supposed ally and benefactor by receiving monetary and military aid. The USSR was also fighting American active measures on many Cold War fronts at this time, but China's action helped drain the Eastern Bloc.